Welcome to the latest episode of Mentors at Your Benchside. I'm Hannah Gamester, and today we're going to take a look at 20 telling signs you're a scientist. According to Bill Nye, science rules, and I think most of us would agree. We are learning more and more about the world around us each day, as well as about ourselves. But is there a difference between being a science fan and a scientist? Everyone has their own parameters, but below are some that are likely only found with the latter breed. You know you're a scientist if you're a walking billboard, because most of your wardrobe consists of free. You know you're a scientist if you're a walking billboard, because most of your wardrobe consists of free t-shirts from vendors. Along those lines, because of your strange lab hours, most of your shopping actually happens at vendor booths at trade shows and conferences. You know you're a scientist if, even in your own home, parts of whole are often referred to as aliquots. Have you ever been in the kitchen and said, "Can you pour me an aliquot of olive oil," for example? You often don't wear a lab coat unless it's absolutely necessary, because most of your clothes will have already been stained or ruined from your experiments. So thank goodness for number one, all the free t-shirts. You know you're a scientist if your brain is so full of science, you have no more space for important dates, times, and names. Most of the things you think are really basic to anyone with a science education are actually quite complicated. What do you mean you don't know what ATP stands for? You'd know you're a scientist if you always point out scientific inaccuracies in movies and TV shows. Think Outbreak, House, and Grey's Anatomy, for example. There's absolutely no way that could happen in real life. You know you're a scientist if you carry on an hour debate over the expected result of a test that actually only takes 5 minutes to run. What about if your 3-year-old son asks why fire is hot and you proceed to go over the principles of thermodynamics and how combustion occurs? You know you're a scientist if you know that 42 is not the answer to life, the universe, and everything. You know you're a scientist if you always wear closed-toe shoes. You cringe at the headline, "Science Stays," and you can't stand an argument based on only one example. Perhaps you know you're a scientist if you've always wondered why you can't drink distilled water in the lab. After all, shouldn't it be super clean? You know you're a scientist if you find yourself giving the lab equipment motivational pep talks, and you've used dry ice to cool beer down more than once. You know you're a scientist if you develop your protocols with incubations to work around your life. You know you're a scientist if no matter what the timings in the experimental protocol, there's always time for lunch in the middle. And you can no longer spell normal words, but have no trouble with spelling things like immunohistochemistry or deoxyribonucleic acid. And finally, you know you're a scientist if you happen to grab a handful of Eppendorf tubes and it turns out to be the exact number you need. You feel like absolute magic. Scientists are passionate, driven, and purposeful. We like asking questions and finding the answers, even if it doesn't always work out. We like knowledge, and we love to spread that knowledge around. We are who we are, but we are some goofy creatures in the best way possible. I hope you've enjoyed our 20 telling signs you're a scientist. Subscribe to get more help and advice from mentors at your benchside.